Starting from Athens, our week's voyage took us to an array of interesting sights, ending in Venice. This was our second voyage on the Viking Sky. The ship looked even nicer than our memories of it from when we sailed on her maiden voyage.
People hearing without listening, people writing songs, our voices never share.
The Olympic Games were held here for over 1,000 years. This area was a training ground for the sprint, discus throw, and other field events. It featured covered arcades on each side. This was built by Philip of Macedon to mark his victory over the Greeks. These arcades surround the wrestling school, also used to train in boxing, etc. The oldest temple on the site. The columns originally were made of wood. The tour was both interesting and informative thanks to our personable guide. The athletes ran down this tunnel into the stadium to be greeted by the crowd of spectators. We did not try to sprint across the field as many visitors do. The small town's park was a nice place to relax while waiting for the bus ride back to the port. Corfu has a large port with plenty of room, not only for cruise ships, but luxury yachts such as this very high-tech one. It's available for charter if you're interested. We first walked around gazing at the few tourist shops and getting a feel for the city. After passing through the produce and fish market, we stopped at a cafe for some mezza and ouzo, a fiery anise-flavored liqueur. Next was a visit to an olive oil soap factory. The visit proved to be much more interesting than expected.
From olive oil, virgin olive oil of local production, from that we make olive oil soap, and olive oil soap is a very mild soap. So today we make the same product we made in the early days using same ingredient and same method of manufacture. What we consider special about this operation, and this is why we still make these products, is the fact that we use natural oils that are friendly to the skin, and the final product contains no additives. There is no perfume, no color, or any chemicals.
The soap is hand-cut and packaged. After a brief detour outside the city center, we visited this 19th century mansion of the nobility. It is presented as a visit to the Count and Countess, along with their children and servants. The slightly animated mannequins were a bit of a surprise.
And there he had his own mansion, he had vineyards, olive trees, so he had to stay there to supervise the workers. But once a week he comes here to
Prepare everything. Yes, thank you.
And next to the children's room was the service room, but because they were so close, this door was always closed. Object named Moschera. Mosca in Italian means fly. It was to protect the bread or other stuff from flies and mosquitoes, from insects.
The day's excursion ended at the old fortress. After a destructive siege in 1537, further improvements were made. Cruising into Kotor takes quite some time as it sits deep in a fjord. It was one of our favorite stops, easy to find your way around with interesting buildings. The date is of the liberation from the Nazis. Named after the once Venetian arsenal, which still stands at the end of the square, other buildings include the town hall and the bell tower. While most residents are Orthodox, this Catholic church is the town's most important, holding the saints' relics. The Maritime Museum is housed in the Gregorina Palace, where, over the centuries, some 98 aristocratic families lived. Both maritime and lifestyle exhibits are featured. This square has two Serbian Orthodox churches. This, the smaller, older one, is St. Luke's, and the larger, newer one, St. Nicholas. Walking the town's ramparts is only for the very fit. In the evening, we drove out to this village, where we then took a small ferry boat out to Our Lady of the Rocks Island for a concert. Perhaps the best-known city along the eastern shoreline of the Adriatic, Dubrovnik is today a tourist magnet. After an orientation, we entered the city through the Pile Gate. This fountain is where an aqueduct system brought water in from the mountains during the Middle Ages. Our guide led us off the main street and through the adjacent area for a look at daily life inside the 15th century walls. After our short visit to the museum, we made a detour outside the walls for a look at the old port before returning inside for the tour's conclusion. The structures here are from Dubrovnik's 15th and 16th century Golden Age. We walked along about half of the city wall, impressed with the views and the wall itself. Most roofs had to be replaced after the 1991 to 92 siege and can be identified by their bright orange color. Older, original ones are easily spotted. We bought one of his tokens and left the wall back where our day's exploration started. We entered the old city of Split. It's always the old city, going under the city wall. Merchants fill this space as they have ever since the wall was constructed. Many of the buildings are still in ruins with reconstruction ongoing. We stopped inside the ancient Roman mausoleum for a concert of traditional song. After our city walk, we drove down the coast.
The city of Split is one of the four main university centers in Croatia. And also, if you cruise at the Adriatic in summertime, you can see virtually hundreds of such small cruise ships.
Arriving at Omiš, we boarded small boats for a cruise up the Cetina River. The bridge across the river is scheduled to be finished by the end of 2022. The ride ended with a snack at a small outdoor restaurant.
It is made at the big fireplaces.
And back to the ship. Little has changed since our last visit to Venice some 50 years ago. As fans of Donna Leone's Commissario Brunetti series, we decided to tour some of the locations featured in the books, starting with his headquarters. This is an ex-church. A short walk then took us to what Brunetti calls the most beautiful piazza in Venice. Under the Campo is a water cistern. Access is through this ornate cover. Of course, we had a drink at the cafe he favors. Then we strolled through the back streets far off the usual tourist route. Next to the mask shop, a class on mask painting was being held. Ending back at St. Mark's, we had some time to renew our memories of the piazza. Our day finished with joining a tour group for a gondola ride.
Una, Lise! Una, dai, Lise! No, no, non touch! Io ho detto ma che musica, dammi una voce.